God always sends a warning before we walk into our self-imposed traps, believe it or not. Have you ever had it to where you're going to go to this place, you're gonna meet these people, you're gonna go do this thing, and then you get this deep feeling in your gut like something is wrong, something is very, very, very wrong, and you get a lot of anxiety, you want to cancel, you don't want to go anymore. Listen to that. If even if it's about interacting with somebody, listen to that. That is your gut telling you like something's off here. You may have had something happen today where you got that inkling. You had a plan, you were going to follow through on that plan, and then before the person was supposed to arrive, or you were supposed to go to this place, or you were supposed to go do this thing, you got this big inkling in your gut that told you no. And then you canceled. You said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go here. I'm not going to see these people. And that feeling washed away, that is a sign from God. When I was reflecting on it, I actually saw, I heard a hummingbird first. And then when I looked up, I saw it flying away, which I took that to mean like that is saying you listened. Good job. You listened. So congratulations. Good for you for listening. I saw that quote that said God always sends a warning before we walk into self-imposed traps, and that is 100% saying trust him. Okay. Also, I did see 955. That's the angel number. About basically it's nearing the end of things, right? That is ramping up to finish out a cycle, a chapter, closing a door. And then with the 2 5s, that is an emphasis on change, forward movement, freedom, transitions. It can also mean that people are starting to notice, or they may start to become aware of why you have ended up picking up and just kind of moving. You probably have had several instances, especially within the last few years, where you have had to do just that, where you have had to say, oh no, this is not working, I gotta go. And people may have seen it as very impulsive, and doing it without thinking, like just kind of cutting and running. That's not the case. I think it's getting to a point now where people are starting to recognize, like, oh, I see why this person is leaving these situations, especially if you were leaving situations where you were constantly getting grouped up on and ganged up on and then scapegoated. If you are somebody that identifies as a truth teller, which I'm assuming if you're here and on this video, you are a truth teller. You are somebody who, very good pattern recognition, very good discernment. Unfortunately, it was probably used against you a lot throughout the years, especially when you were younger. You really had this mentality where you assumed everybody was like you, that everybody had good intentions, that nobody genuinely wanted to hurt you, that there, and then you ended up getting gaslit, or convinced that you were wrong, or told that you were crazy, or that the things you were saying are not accurate. A lot of Darbo happening, which is deny. I can't even think of it, so clearly that's not supposed to be something I talk about, so let's just keep moving. Back to the truth teller thing. If you are somebody that constantly gets ganged up on, you're going to notice that tends to happen more to people that don't speak up right away. Me personally, I am very big on not always showing my hand. I'm not very big in terms of like muscles. I'm not very tall. I'm very average. I'm pretty skinny. I'm not a fighter. 100% a lover. I could just assume that you were probably very much the same, that you were just not a fighter. You were a lover, and I've met 6'6" men that have the same kind of demeanor as me. A lot more muscles, much bigger mass. They could pick you up, but because they come off as these quiet, like really delicate kind of people, they get walked on because people assume that they don't see what's going on. And then when, this big bear of a man decides to speak up for himself, then So I say that to say that it doesn't matter what you look like. If you have an aura that is just very calm, um, you also don't like to make waves. People tend to use that against you. I've also noticed that if you are somebody who um, you like to let people kind of show you who they are, you don't necessarily kind of force it out of them. They will take that to mean that you were probably dumb. And you'll notice that they'll try and do things to get, to get things out of you, whether it's, trying to steal from you or push you into provocations or just doing a lot of things, especially if you're somebody that is always alone. People assume that when you are alone, that means that you don't have anyone to back you up, that you're easier to dogpile on because of the fact that you don't have anyone to come into your corner. That doesn't mean anything. One of the biggest misconceptions anybody can do is doubt somebody and assume that they don't have the capabilities to stand up and defend themselves. Especially if you're going to notice that when it's one-on-one, if they can't take you down on their own, they're going to get others to group up against you. Why? Because that's how strong you are as a person, and you should be kind of flattered. It's not the best flattery. Nobody actually really wants it, but in a way you should be flattered because that is a skill. That is an amazing skill. And it's funny because what ends up happening in these situations is the more people that they end up trying to dogpile on you with, and the more that they tend to break rules, policies, laws, whatever the situation is. Spiritual laws is a big one. They kind of rack it up, and they end up digging a really big hole for themselves, right? I'm thinking of I think it's Daniel in the Bible. I actually saw a video recently, about how the pit that they had dug for Daniel, they ended up falling in for themselves. That's the thing. So as long as you keep listening, you keep trusting him, you don't come from a place of lack, 717 on the timer, it's gonna pay out almost instantaneously every single time, whether it's actually financially or just in terms of like emotional, like freedom, fulfillment, whatever it is. You may be in a space right now where you're kind of noticing things. Don't speak up too quickly on it. Don't let authority overpower you, because you may be in a situation right now where you really have somebody that is just really invading, in terms of crossing boundaries, not respecting, the lines that you have made. Unfortunately, just sometimes there's not much you can do about that, especially if it's a situation where it's very, very, very covert. Just document it. Don't be so quick to get into combativeness with it. Stay kind, but hold firm boundaries. Be like, no, this isn't how this is gonna go. And don't pay attention to the things that they may be trying to ruffle up in you in terms of emotional responses, because it's intentional, especially if you're moving in a space right now where you're very calm and you're kind of just seeing things for what they are, and you're choosing to kind of move forward in that way. Be very careful, because there's a reason why. If you notice that people are wanting to kind of isolate you and make sure that you're by yourself and you're over here and you're not able to communicate, and there's a reason for that. So they're going to use rage baiting tactics. They're going to do more boundary crossing. They're going to do a lot of things to try and get this reaction out of you, so that way you fit whatever it is that they're having to tell people to justify whatever action it is that they're doing. But remember, a guilty conscience will tell on you a lot faster than sometimes your own actions will, especially if you're really good at being sneaky. But at the end of the day, when you have things to feel guilty about, it's going to come out. It's just how it is. You're doing the right thing. Keep moving. Keep listening to him. He's warning you about that self-imposed prison that you're going to be walking into if you don't.